Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Partnerships to Support Successful Customized Employment. You are at the right webinar today, July 25th. The LEAD WIOA Policy Development Center is led by National Disability Institute and is fully funded by the Office of Disability Employment Policy, U.S. Department of Labor. Next slide. Hi, I am your moderator, Nancy Buteau. I work for the LEAD WIOA Policy Development Center and National Disability Institute. Next slide, we have a couple housekeeping tips for you. First of all, captioning. If you wish to personalize the captioning, you can click on the live transcript button on the Zoom panel and find the hide captions option, or you can adjust your caption size under the subtitle settings option. Alternatively, you may open a captioning webpage in your new browser and click the link posted in the chat box. So we'll put that link in the chat box. And to adjust the background color or text color and font, you can use the drop-down menu at the top of the browser. Position the window to sit on top of the embedded captioning. Next slide. And if you have any questions on content, click on the Q&A button and type in your question. We've got individuals that can assist you there. And if you've got any tech support questions, also type your question in the chat box and we will have someone help you there. Next slide, please. Well, it is my privilege and honor to introduce Rose Warner to do our welcome and our opening remarks. Rose is the Senior Policy Advisor for Workforce Systems Policy Team at the Office of Disability Employment Policy, otherwise known as ODEP, with the U.S. Department of Labor. Rose, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Nancy, and greetings, everyone. As Nancy said, I'm Rose Warner, and I'm a Senior Policy Advisor at ODEP. I also serve as the Federal Project Officer for the LEAD Center. On behalf of the Department of Labor, welcome to our webinar. As a self-description, I am a white woman with shoulder-length curly brown hair. I wear purple glasses, and today I am wearing an orange dress with big purple flowers. My background is an authentic Colorado view featuring many mountains and trees. It is such a privilege to be speaking to you today during a very important week in the disability community. Tomorrow marks the 33rd anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. In addition to welcoming you today, I will also review the objectives of today's webinar. As I do, I will highlight resources that you can look into after the webinar. LEAD colleagues, can you please insert these resources into the chat as I mention them? Next slide. Our first objective of today's webinar is identify a variety of approaches to achieving customized employment outcomes through partnerships. When I think of this objective, I think of the blending, braiding, and sequencing joint communication and FAQ ODEP, along with 8 other federal agencies, released last year. These innovative funding strategies may be useful as you consider implementing discovery and customized employment. The second objective is implement guided group discovery, adapted as needed to their clientele through partnerships. For this objective, I would recommend the guided group discovery training materials we developed specifically for youth and for veterans. Next slide. Our third objective is explore funding options and way to blend, braid, and sequence resources across systems. I already mentioned the blending, braiding, and sequencing joint communication in FAQ. But in addition to those resources, we also held 3 webinars last year demonstrating examples of blending, braiding, and sequencing. The fourth objective is discuss success stories about people who have benefited from customized employment, including how it worked and why it was important from the perspectives of the job seeker, employer, and employment staff. For this, I recommend a few videos we developed about veterans who benefited from customized employment. These videos are called Customized Employment Works for Veterans, a Job That I Love, and a Win-Win Strategy. If you prefer to read, we also have a Customized Employment Works for Veterans brief featuring 5 veteran stories. As I conclude my remarks, I want to acknowledge that it's Disability Pride Month. Although I have been legally blind for my entire life, I did not always have disability pride. I only came to have pride in my disability after spending an entire summer of career development with other disabled young adults. Disability pride is incredibly important because it is empowering. It's about being proud of who I am and all that comes with it, including my disability. It's about recognizing that while my disability doesn't define me, it is a part of my human experience. Reframing disability as an asset instead of a liability changed my entire outlook and took a huge weight off my shoulders. Having a good job can accomplish this too. So I want to personally thank all of today's speakers for helping empower people with disabilities through employment. Finally, tomorrow is not the only big disability policy celebration this year. On September 26th, we will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Rehabilitation Act. The theme for the Rehabilitation Act anniversary is Advancing Access and Equity, Then, Now, and Next. Right after the Rehab Act anniversary is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM, which is celebrated every October. Going along with the Rehabilitation Act anniversary theme, the NDEAM theme this year is Advancing Access and Equity. We can't wait to hear about the celebrations you all are planning. Thank you again for being here today, and thank you in advance to our speakers for sharing their stories with us. Thanks also to the LEAD team for coordinating today's webinar. That's all the announcements I have for today. Nancy, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Rose. I appreciate that. And thank you for describing yourself. You made me realize I did not do that. I am, my description kind of sounds like yours. I'm a white woman with curly brown hair and purple glasses, and I'm wearing a brightly colored top. So thank you for that. Also, I just want everyone to know, I saw, we have access to this PowerPoint, and it will be up on the LEAD Center website within the next week and a half to 2 weeks. So you will have access to that. If you are signed up for the LEAD Center's listserv, you will also get an announcement when it comes out. And also, I see that some links are going into the chat, but they're not working. Don't worry. We will get that worked out. And even if we don't get it worked out during the webinar, all of the links are in the presentation that you will be getting in that in the next week and a half to 2 weeks. So thank you for that. I am thrilled to introduce to you 4 of our esteemed speakers that we have today. First is Tony DePeel. She is the Pre-Employment Transition Service, or PREETS coordinator for the state of Oregon, vocational rehabilitation. Wendy Parker is the manager of post-secondary transition with the Division of Specialized Instruction, Office of Teaching and Learning at the District of Columbia Public Schools. Jaya Cooper is a former guided group discovery participant. Jaya currently working at Marshall's, and she was actually one of the first guided group discovery group participants in the DC public schools. And we also have Takia Milburn with us. She is the project manager for transition services at DC Rehabilitation Services Administration at the DC Department of Disability Services. Next slide. So before we hear from our speakers, I wanted to give everyone a quick overview of customized employment, and we can go on to the next slide. What is customized employment? Customized employment is for an individual with a significant disability that is based on individualized determination of strengths, needs, and interests. It is designed to meet the specific abilities of the individual with a significant disability and the business needs of the employer. So it's a great match, and it's carried out through flexible strategies. And that is taken from Section 7 of the Rehabilitation Act as amended by WIOA. Next slide, please. So why use customized employment? Well, there are several reasons. First, it supports people with barriers to employment to attain their employment goals when traditional strategies just aren't succeeding for that individual. And it also assists in the implementation of ongoing supports that promote employment retention that some individuals may need. Next slide, please. So where does discovery fit into this process? Well, discovery is actually the first step in a customized employment process or journey. Discovery seeks to find who a person is right now, what their interests and preferences are, what their skills and contributions are, and what their conditions of employment may be. And we all know that we all have conditions that we have to make our employment what we want it to be. And lastly, it's used to match a job seeker to an employer's needs. And we can go on to the next slide. There are several components of a customized approach, and that includes discovery, which is basically gathering information about that person, as we just talked about before, when we're thinking about interests and contributions and skills. And then the next part is a profile, which we also call an employment blueprint. So that blueprint is a written summary of what was learned during the discovery process. And I will talk about that in a little more detail in a few slides. But that written summary can then be brought to an employment meeting on customized employment, where a plan for employment can be developed. Another component to customize the customized approach is informational interviews and networking. So discovering employer and community needs. And then lastly, proposing and negotiating employment opportunities for that individual. We can go on to the next slide, please. So one of the things that I really love about customized employment is it circumvents a comparative approach to employment. And we know that most individuals with significant barriers to employment can sometimes be deemed as unemployable. So what we see as a traditional job development approach, things like vocational assessment, resume development, practicing interviews, responding coldly to job ads, or just your standard filling out an application and interview. The comparative approach, the customized approach, is what we're talking about. It's discovery. It's developing a profile. And a profile could include a portfolio. It could include pictures. It could even be a video resume where somebody can show off their skills to an employer. And then the other part of it, the customized approach, is informational interviews and connections. So rather than practicing interviewing with a staff and then going out and actually having a live interaction with an employer, which can be difficult at times, we do something called informational interviews, where a person who's looking for a job can meet with employers and just talk to them about what their employment or their place of employ offers individuals. And then the other thing that customized employment does is matches skills to the employer needs. And then we help people put together employment proposals that they can then put towards the employer to try to finalize that employment and get the job. We can go on to the next slide. There are several formats for discovery: facilitated, self-guided, and guided group. Not going to go into those in any detail because you will get all of the links to all of those in the resources. I just want everyone to know right now that all of these resources have so many different products for you to use. So they've got PowerPoint presentations, they've got a facilitator's guide, they've got student workbooks, really everything you need to be able to implement discovery in your place of employment. Next slide, please. And whether we're looking at any of those forms of discovery, they pretty much come down to the same thing, which is a job search team, which is a group of people that the person can rely on for job-related advice, support, and feedback. Nobody works well in a silo. So part of discovery is getting information from family, friends, teachers, if somebody's a youth in school, counselors, neighbors, whoever they might want on their team, that's going to help them to get the job that they want. Next slide. And the discovery process leads to that blueprint for employment that I was talking about earlier. So the blueprint summarizes what somebody learns when they're going through that discovery process. And it provides the person with structure that they can take to their first or second or third or 10th step toward employment, whatever it may be. None of us have had just one job in our lifetimes. I know myself, I've had many. So discovery leads to the blueprint, which leads to the job search plan, which leads to the action. And of course, that final action is actually having that person obtain a job. And having said that, I would now like to turn the presentation over to Tony DePeel. Again, Tony is from Oregon, and she was part of the original pilot project for discovery that National Disability Institute and the LEAD Center did with the state of Oregon back in 2018. And the amazing thing that Tony will talk to you about is, we all know that in 2020, the pandemic hit, but they kept discovery going in the state of Oregon by changing the materials to make sure that they worked virtually. So it's a very interesting presentation. So Tony, with that, I would like to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Nancy. Hello, my name's Tony DePeel, and I'm here from the great state of Oregon. I'm a middle-aged woman with shoulder-length hair, brown, a little bit of gray fleck inside of that. And I work here in Oregon, under the position title of Pre-Employment Transition Service Coordinator. And when I began this job in 2017, there were 2 of us. And now, of course, we are expanding and working with a lot of students throughout the whole state. And the map that you're seeing is our state of Oregon to the right there on that slide. And the initial project that happened here in 2018, we were piloted with 6 different areas in the state. We have what is titled a transition network facilitator in the state of Oregon. That is a grant-funded position, partly with the Oregon Department of Education and partly funded through vocational rehabilitation. And these positions, we work together as a whole network. My position as a pre-ETS coordinator, along with pre-ETS support specialists. So we have like this inner working network throughout the whole state. So we all came to a training initially and learned about the guided group discovery project and how we can implement it throughout the whole state in different schools. And initially, I was not part of the mentoring project, but I was trained, and through that, we had someone that had to leave and got a new position. So then I was added into the initial project, and I worked with a local high school transition specialist and mentored her through the whole training process. And she gave the curriculum and worked with students at the school that she was at. So it's been evaluated. We've added many more people, and it's still continuing in Oregon. And I think that's great. And I'm excited to bring a little bit of information today on how I took it along with my coworker at that time, Terry Brown. We took it and we changed it up so we could continue to use it during COVID. So next slide, and we'll get into that, a little bit of information. This is just how we said, hey, teachers, this is what we're going to do. We're going to continue. We all knew we had to keep teaching during COVID, and we wanted to, as a vocational rehabilitation program, be able to continue offering pre-employment transition services. So we marketed it a little bit out to the schools that we had already met staff and teachers. And then also during the summer, I was able to work with several groups throughout the whole state offering this curriculum. Yes, in a very different sort of way because it was virtual, but just to give students some more experiences about discovery. And as you can see through this slide, we tried to connect with those 5 key areas there. What is work? What are tasks? What are your strengths? What type of work do I want to do? And what type of employers do I want to work for? And then learning about networking and industries and more and more and more. And I will go ahead and say, go to the next slide and I can show you a little more information. So being able to help students engage virtually was not easy. Many of you probably remember the whole Zoom squares, you know, everybody popping in and out, but many students didn't even want to turn their cameras on. And so we wanted to start from the very beginning of our lessons, getting them to engage. And so learning a little bit more about who they are, what their interests are. Some of the students had worked already, but this was just really similar to what you might call an icebreaker, just getting them into the thought process and drawing them in to think about work. All right, next slide. And this is a little bit about me, because what I always find is if I'm willing to share a little bit about myself, they also will be more willing to share about who they are. And nothing better than sharing what your pets are, right? And yeah, these are my dogs. So I really enjoy my animals. And I think students can relate to that. And that's really what we're trying to do. My position with vocational rehabilitation, I'm a pre-ETS coordinator. And so I am not assigned to just one school. And that's what's different about my role is, yes, we had teachers in schools doing the program, but in my role, I'm going in and out. And so I have to try to make connections with the student. Next slide. I'm clicking my own notes over here also at the same time. So this is probably one of my favorite projects that's part of the curriculum, is let the students think a little bit about, here I am right now, but what are my hopes and dreams? What is my interest? And this is, we did this also virtually, had the students draw, and then they just held it up to the screen. But now that we are back in person, I just finally did a class, and I really did continue to use the slides that I had developed during COVID, because I felt like, well, with this particular students, that it was a good placeholder, a lot of visuals, things that can keep them engaged. And an idea to do with this is you have them do it in class, have them sit down, you know, get out the colored pencils, get out the markers, the things that they enjoy. Another idea, we used a document cam. And so the whole idea with students is trying to teach them more self-advocacy skills. And anytime that they can feel more comfortable being in front of people, getting up, talking about themselves a little bit, sharing what their hopes and dreams are with other people. Then when we bring in employers, have them meet people they don't know, they're a little bit more at ease. So some of the things we wanted them to consider was, where are you going to live? What kind of work you want to do? And what are the things that you might want to have when you become an adult. And so thinking a little bit more like that. This is one of the projects that's in the curriculum. Next slide. Oh, yes, this is one of the worksheets. And of course, it's not the full worksheet, it's just a part of it that during COVID, we thought, how are we going to give the students something that they can relate to when we're doing the presentations? And so we took some time and made some worksheets to work with the students. They were either sent out ahead of time and the teachers uploaded them. Many had Google and used it that way. And then also in person, we, may use these worksheets to give them an extra activity to do. So this one, was from lesson 1 as, why work? Next slide. We also wanted to include some videos, and I'm not going to play this video, but you are probably well aware of the different videos that are used through the national one-stop system. So the kids always, of course, always enjoy. Here's another animal video, right? So trying to keep it mixed up so they had different interests and in the videos. So we didn't just use animal videos, just to let you know. We added this because one of the things during COVID is we couldn't have visitors, right? So we had to think about the resources that we could do to introduce them to their local one-stop center. Next slide. Oh, it almost played for you, so sorry about that. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we included was, what about you? What kind of environments do you like? And really, this is a really good discussion. And one of the things that I like to do in person is have a running chart paper. So students start thinking about what they like, what they don't like, but then also documenting that on that piece of paper. And it really is encouraging to other students when they see that other people have the same thoughts. And so we'll make check marks. I'll even circle with different colors to add if it's I won't just say, oh yeah, we already have that up there. So I want to always make sure that they know that we're hearing their voice also, and by including them in that way. So open discussions about environments. It's interesting to hear what the students will say, what they don't like, and what others they seem to care for. So that's always a fun thing. I like to leave the chart paper when I have a classroom and I'm going in and out. I'll leave it with the teacher. And so the teacher can go back to that throughout the week. I may only come once a week, but the teacher can go back. They can, talk about it during class if there's some time that they want to do that, but it allows for enforced learning and reinforcement. Next slide. Just a moment here. I want to just make sure I'm getting my notes that I wanted to talk about. This is a piece about in the curriculum that talks about skills and tasks. Many students don't think about a job description and being able to break it down, right? They might think about, okay, here's the job description, but understanding these are the skills and the knowledge that I need to have. This is the piece of work in a task, but also there's a great thing if you would like to do it is, and I checked the last time I had a student that was allergic to peanuts. So we just made a jelly sandwich, but what are the tasks? How do you break things down? And I think that's a lot with discovery, understanding that not all students will be able to perform a task 100%, but what are the pieces that they know about and that they can do? So just the understanding of breaking down job descriptions and tasks. So make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich if you want to and show that. So the next slide, I want to check my time. How am I doing here? I've got time. We're doing good. Okay. So the next slide talks about vocational themes, taking a look at what are the different jobs and maybe what family do they all go with. So you might have a student that says, I'm very interested in becoming a nurse. Well, what are the other jobs in that family? And, you know, just talking a little bit more in depth, being able to help them take a look at maybe not the one job that they're thinking about, but what are some of the other things within that zone? So what are the vocational themes? Working on that. In the next slide, this one in particular gives an example of what we would use with some pictures, right? So this, and remembering that we did this a lot virtually. So, and I do and have printed these things also to work in classrooms to give a little bit more hands-on activity. Check boxes, those are easy. So next slide. One of the things that we did, I wanted to mention is we've added a strengths card sort, and those can be found very easily on the internet. But thinking about what your strengths are, and when you're getting ready to do like a networking pitch, what are some of the things that I need to do and talk about and understand about myself when I go to do the piece about networking? Who do I know? Who's going to be on my job search team? How can I share a little bit about myself? And so we'll do a strengths card sort with the students so they can start speaking to what their strengths are. And another activity that we've done before is after they decide on their strengths, pair them up and then have them talk to each other about their strengths and share back and forth, much like you would in a job interview. And that question, can you tell me about yourself? So adding more self-advocacy, working as a team, and then mixing it up and having them work with other students too. So that is the end of that slide. All right.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so
go.
much, Tony. Thank you. Great information. Before you go, you mentioned something, a certain camera when you had the picture up, the handwritten pencil picture. Can you tell us what the camera was that you were talking about?
It's called a document cam, and it's used, it's really, you can just place a piece of paper. I think we used to call them opaque projectors or something like that. They used to be big machines that you would wheel in on a cart and you just slid like a microfilm over the top of it. But now we have a document cam, and it's just a camera that's connected to a projector, and the students can slide their papers right under it and be able to show their work and talk about it in front of other people. So
Thank you, Tony, and thank you for that presentation.
you're welcome.
And that walk down memory lane, thinking about that projector. All right, well, now it is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Takia Milburn from the DC Department of Disability Services, Rehabilitation Services Administration. Take it away, Takia.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So as she mentioned, my name is Takia Milburn, and I serve as the project manager for our transition services within the Rehabilitation Service Administration, where we provide services to individuals between the ages of 14 and 22 for our pre-ed services, and under 25, so up to 24 for our transitional youth. So the Department of Disability Services, our mission is to provide innovative, high-quality services that enable people with disabilities to lead meaningful and productive lives as vital members of their families, schools, workplaces, and communities in every neighborhood within the District of Columbia. So the Department of Disability Services is comprised of 3 agencies, and they are the Developmental Disability Administration, which is responsible for oversight and coordination of services for individuals who are qualified persons with an intellectual disability. My agency, which is the Rehabilitation Service Administration, which we refer to it as RSA, and we provide vocational and rehabilitative services to individuals with disabilities to help them with preparing, securing, or maintaining employment. And then we have our last agency, which is the Disability Determination Agency, which works with individuals in regards to Social Security insurance. Next slide, please. So before I hop into our experience with the Guided Group Discovery Program, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our collaboration of services and kind of how it all came about. So we work with local schools to ensure uninterrupted services for students transitioning from the secondary education environment to post-secondary education, training, and employment. To determine a person's needs, and to prepare them for employment, we partner with qualified service providers, which you will hear about a little later. And RSA also partners with the workforce system, the Workforce Investment Council, State Education Agency, the Child Welfare System, and the Department on Behavioral Health, and many, many more agencies. Next slide, please. So the origins of the program the program was developed by the Lead Center in ODEP and DOL, and the program was piloted in Oregon. So that program was brought over to the District of Columbia, where we became the first urban area to implement the program. So RCM, which is one of our HCA providers, customized and adapted the program to fit the needs of the DC's population and job market. And they adapted to virtual learning using the Nearpod platform. And that was because this program was piloted during COVID-19. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit about the Guided Group Discovery history. So as I mentioned, it was piloted during COVID-19, which was in spring of 2021. And we partnered with our supported employment provider, RCM of Washington, and the River Terrace Education Campus to introduce the Guided Group Discovery Project to teachers and students with the support of the VR counselor assigned to the school. So River Terrace is one of our schools within the District of Columbia, and you'll hear from them later on today. Participants created individual blueprints to guide them as they navigated their journey toward employment. So the Guided Group Discovery Program provided a peer-to-peer opportunity for job seekers to jointly identify their interests, skills, and accommodations for employment. It helped address the need for youth with disabilities to develop work skills and work opportunities while they were still in school, and to identify needed supports to help them with getting a job. Next slide. At the conclusion of the piloted program, which again, I want to mention that it was during COVID-19, since we had a great success, we had 33 out of 44 participants, which was about a 75% completion rate, complete blueprints for employment, and they were able to gain the knowledge and skills and confidence to pursue their future employment endeavors. Due to the success of this program, the Guided Group Discovery process was extended to the general vocational rehabilitation population to provide adults with access to this program as well. The pilot adult program started in November of 2021, and while they didn't have as many participants as we had within the transition department, they did have 3 participants who completed blueprints for employment. So this program was super, super huge, again, at our River Terrace Education Campus, and that school is known to work with individuals who have the most significant disabilities. So these numbers here, and seeing 75% of completion, were super, super good. Next slide, please. Now we're going to take a look into one of our students' blueprints. Next slide. So here's the blueprint for employment, and it says, it is exactly what it says, it's all about you. So part of the blueprint consisted of individuals informing the individual who they were working with, their peer mentor, about their interests, their skills, their tasks, and their positive personality traits. So I'm not going to go through each of them, but if we just want to pause for a quick second so you guys can just look at it and kind of take it in and see what it consists of.
Everybody that we will give out a copy of the presentation. We've got a lot of interest in some of the slides that you're showing. So they will be posted. This presentation will be posted on the LEAD website within 7 to 10 days.
All right, if we can go to the next slide. Here are some vocational themes and accommodations. And again, I'll just pause so you guys can look at those. And again, this is all self-informed. So this is all driven by the individual who is developing their blueprint for employment. So these were just obviously some of the interests that the individuals had and common themes that they showed. So for example, if the individual said that they were interested in books, we could kind of determine that they wouldn't mind working at a library or a bookstore or a museum. Same for the retail. We've had individuals say that they're interested in shopping and things like that, which we know at some stores like Target or, mall jobs and things like that. Sometimes people request one-to-one shoppers. So that is how we determine what those themes are. Some of the accommodations and disclosure and framing sensitive information. So this person say, I may need additional time or training to learn new tasks. Needing more time does not mean I will not be good at my job. In fact, once I learn from the task, I am good. This individual also shared that he was hesitant to share his disabilities with others because he didn't want to be looked at differently, which we know is a common thing that we see within, I know, vocational rehabilitation services. A lot of students or individuals that we serve determine that they don't want to share their disability, and sometimes they may need instruction in self-advocacy to inform them that they don't have to disclose their disability if they don't choose to. Next slide, please. So here's a success story, and we have quite a few of these. I'm going to read over two, and then we have quite a few videos as well that'll be included in the PowerPoint. And then we'll also have actual video so you guys can hear from one of our individuals as well. So Adam finished the GGD program in 2022, and he graduated from River Terrace. While in the program, he explored his skills and his interests. An emerging theme was an interest in helping others and working with children or youth. He was able to use these skills that he learned from the Guided Group Discovery Program to apply for, interview, and secure a job on his own as a cafeteria worker in a local elementary school. His main role is to assist with preparing the fruit for lunches. He received job coaching from the supports of Rehabilitation Services Administration at the start, but has now fully faded supports and is doing well, so he's working independently. He has maintained his job since September of 2022, and his case was closed successfully within the vocational rehabilitation services. He loves helping the kids, and he loves having summers off. I wish I had summers off too, Adam. Next success story. Next slide. All right, so Tyrone finished the program in 2022. He then enrolled in the NAF Academy of Hospitality and Tourism at the River Terrace Education Campus in 2022-2023. So he was able to gain additional career skill development. He graduated in June 2023, and while in the program, he identified skills and interests. An emerging theme for him was his openness to many areas of employment, including cleaning, security, and customer service. Using the skills learned in GGD, he successfully applied for, interviewed, and attained a summer job at Six Flags as a ride operator. He is maintaining this position while he pursues permanent employment. He is enjoying the job and feels confident about attaining future long-term employment. He advocates for himself well, and because of the Guided Group Discovery Program, he can clearly identify the supports he needs and knows how to request them. Next slide. All right, I'll turn it back over to Nancy at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Takia. And next, we are going to watch a short video featuring one of our next speakers, Jaya Cooper, as well as Wendy Parker. So we're going to show this on YouTube. So typically what happens is the sound might be a little light. So you may need to adjust your speakers. There's nothing wrong with the video. It's just the way YouTube operates. And with that, we'll watch the video.
Yes, my name is Jai Cooper.
And what do you currently do?
Well, I'm interning at Partnerships Area Region. Is a hospitality program.
Okay. And so do you remember Guided Group Discovery last year?
Yes.
What did you do in Guided Group Discovery?
Well, in that program, I made a blueprint.
And has the blueprint helped you in job development?
Yes, it helped me build my own resume. So I have my work experience, my previous experience that didn't pass, and recent. And visual portfolios so I can get to my employer for I have a meet and greet to different internship sites, and my own Webby website created, and it's called www.jaiCooper.weebly.com, and by my work experience and my strengths and my goals.
Cool. Have you used the blueprint in order to help like try to get a job? Like, have you used it with employers?
Yes, I applied to 9 to 10 more jobs, and I used my blueprint to help me talk about my work skills, my interests, and my needs.
Do you have a job yet?
No, but I do have a phone interview Wednesday with IKEA.
Do you have any advice for students who are going into guided group discovery for next year?
Yes, that to make sure they can prepare themselves for a job. And if they're nervous to go on an interview, they always system on doing role playing, so they won't be as nervous to go on an interview.
Thank you, Jaya. Great job.
Great. Jaya and Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. I apologize in advance. I am getting over a cold, so I will try to speak up so everyone can hear me. I am Wendy Parker. I'm the manager of transition here at DC Public Schools. And so what that means, similar to Tony, I do not support one school. I support all programs for students with IEP and 504 plans who are transitioning out. So specifically our juniors and seniors across the district. And then I will let, real quick, so I don't forget, I am a 30-something-year-old Black woman of medium complexion. My hair is pulled back in a little bun today. I have a headset on as if I am taking orders from McDonald's. And I have little freckles. So I'll let Jaya introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Jai Cooper, and I was a guide group discovery participant at Weird Terrace last year. Not last year. I think a year after I did partnership, because 2021 I was, and I enjoyed every minute of the program because it taught me a lot about my job skill and the blueprint I built when I did my resume, and it also helped me when I got set into part of the search program and went through the internships that I worked there and led me a job, all the 3 jobs I have, my previous jobs and my job I have now at Marshall's. So it's really helped me gain my skills.
Jaya. So I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions because it has been a few years. So can you remind us again, when did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school from Academic Academy, third period day school, class of 2020. So June 24th, 2020.
And then, so just so everyone is aware, Jaya was a non-public student. So she had funds dedicated to her to go outside of our DCPS schools. And then Jaya was accepted into one of our employment training programs, which is held at River Terrace. And I do want to answer Alan's question in the chat. So River Terrace is a school for our students with the most significant needs in the district. However, in that school, we have a special training program called the Workforce Development Center. So those students are kind of completely different training, employment. So the need is definitely different than the rest of the school. And so we did work with Workforce Development
Okay,
Center.
it looks like Wendy froze. We'll give her a couple seconds. That does happen.
I can hear Wendy okay.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't freeze for me.
All right, well, I'm gonna keep going then. So Jaya was part of Workforce Development Center. So she did intern, but we did do guided group discovery outside of the Workforce Development Center with the other students as well. So Alan, I hope that answers your question. So Jaya, you said you had how many jobs after graduating and exiting DCPS?
I had 3 previous jobs, and they were the first one I got accepted when I graduated out of part of the search was WSG's son, a hardware store, and after that, after I left Jinx, I got hired to this job called Photogenic Incorporated, which was working with the City Cruises, partnership with City Cruises, which I take photos of people that's boarding the boat when they go on parties, different events they have on the boat, and selling photos to the customers. And also, and then I got this job through this program, this organization with Best Buddies, and I'm working at Marshall's.
Thank you, Jaya. So if you don't mind, can you tell the audience, when you're working at Marshall's, did you request any accommodations or anything that you needed to be successful that maybe you've learned in a blueprint?
Yes, I would definitely want to talk to my job coach, and then I talked to my supervisor. I'll put accommodations that will help me on the job. That's a lot easier for me. Like also, my job coach help write notes when I'm doing shoes, when I'm organizing shoes, processing shoes. I need like a list, whatever that helps me how to do my job correctly. Like put tags on, to put the string, put the sensor through the shoe, through the price tag. So it'll be easier for me to see what I have to do and the instructions that I follow. And also my job coach made a Marshall's guide on my phone. So I go on my notes on my phone so I can look at it so I can know what steps to do next. Or if I don't know what to do, I can go on my phone and look at those.
Thank you, Jaya. And so we're coming down to the end, so I just want to ask you one last question. So where do you see yourself, and this doesn't just have to be about employment, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, definitely I want to work on definitely get my GED, or get my high school diploma, hopefully get my barbering license because I want to do barbering, cut hair, and it's still now. Also, get my own place, my own apartment, so I could live independently, be on my own, talk about pay bills, and be a successful adult.
I love that, Jaya. So I also just want to add so the audience knows, I've worked with Jaya for, I guess 3 years, COVID, maybe 4, I don't know. And one of the things that really makes Jaya a success story is that family engagement. Her mother has been incredible. So when we talk about guided group discovery and having a team, I don't think the teams work in silos. So it's not just the school system, it's not just the VR system, it's the family as well. And so to me, that is a huge component of the guided group discovery and our success stories. If there's any other questions, we are available here, but if not, I can pass it back to the moderators. Thank you, Jaya.
You're welcome.
Oh, Wendy and Jaya, thank you so much. Jaya, I think you won an award. I don't know if you realize, but as you're talking, there are so many clapping hands and thumbs up and hearts and party hats, more than I've seen. So I want to officially award you with the prize for getting the most of those as a presenter.
Thank you.
All right, Rebecca, do we have any questions?
We do. We have a few questions, and I'm going to cluster a few together. I think, and this is probably for both Wendy and Tony, there are questions related to how people get referred into guided group discovery or become part of it, and how you accommodate people who have more significant disabilities. I know that that Takia mentioned that DCPS, the DC Public School, is used a Nearpod system, but people may not know what that is. But I know that there were things that both systems did to make things more graphic with lower reading levels, and that you both adapted the guided group discovery materials. So maybe if both Tony and Wendy can talk about how people got into the program and how you adapted the materials, that would be helpful, I think.
Absolutely. Excuse me. So for the pilot program, we specifically wanted to work with the students who were going into that training program I discussed. So the Workforce Development Center at River Terrace. Those students all get in through an application process. They are interviewed and then they are accepted. So again, they are not the typical students who've been moved to the school due to the higher need. So again, I just want to make sure that is clear. We work with Workforce Development Center, and then we also work with the students who went through Workforce Development Center but needed additional assistance. And so for us, focusing on those students who are about to exit, this was a critical piece of just making sure they were ready and prepared and needed those customized employment skills. During the COVID, we did use Nearpod, which is really just a curriculum-based, easily accessible way for students to engage with the teachers. But all of the classes, the special ed teachers are in the class. So they also have the instructor as well as the instructor aide. So while RCM, which is the provider agency, is teaching the class, the instructor who specializes in accommodations for students, and they know the students' IEPs, they will be able to then scaffold it for each student. So I'll let Tony go ahead.
Thanks, Wendy. So much like what Wendy was mentioning, when I go to classrooms, the teachers there along with assistants, and we really do a lot of scaffolding and changing and making sure that it's fitting for each student. And more significant classrooms, I have not worked in. There was a question that was asked at one point, is if a substitute came in, because I would rarely come in, right? So once a week, it's not like I'm assigned to a school and the students know me. So I think that is a key thing, is if there's somebody that's already in the school that is interested in looking at the curriculum, I think that is really optimal for students with more complex needs. And we did make some adaptations. I think I've got 3 levels that I work off of, and I try to make a decision on what's going to be the best fit for the group of students. And then really just being fluid and willing and flexible for any change that's needing to happen during the classroom time, and not pushing. You know, if I can't finish one lesson, I'm not going to push. I'm just going to get the best results for the students at that time. And so a lot of flexibility and willing to say, hey, we may not get this lesson done today. And it really, that's not the goal, finishing the lesson. The goal is that the student gets some discovery and has the best experience with the learning. I know there was another question. Wendy, what was the other question? I'm trying to remember what else it was.
Tony, we actually are right at time.
Okay,
so
excellent. Thank you.
We're not going to be able to, but for all the speakers, I want to say thank you. And if we do have some unanswered questions, if we could send them to you and or put you in touch with folks that are asking some of the questions, I think that would be really helpful. We had a jam-packed presentation today. So I want to go on to just like the very end of the presentation. There are 6 slides that Laura's going through right now. So just know that when you get this presentation, you will have 6 pages of resource slides. The presentation that you will receive will include Jaya's video, which we saw a lot of people were interested in. And lastly, thank you for joining the Lead Center WIOA Policy Development, and please visit us at www.leadcenter.org. And thank you for joining, and we appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.